over to Jan Tracy and you for a look at the Hull series development.
To Hull with this.
Oh boy.
Well, thank you very much, Sandy and me. I'm here with lead technical designer Dan Tracy, and we are talking, what else? The Hull series. Hey, Dan.
Hey, how's it going, Ben?
Not too bad. Seen a lot of each other in the last couple of days as
Yeah,
we
totally.
fought with cargo numbers and ship sizes. And
It's a lot of back and forth, right?
Yeah.
Development and work in progress.
I think people would be very surprised to see how much goes into getting the ship out on the website.
Yeah, tell me about it. So what do you want to talk about?
Well, I guess we're going to talk about the development of the Hull series. And I will kick it off because I was actually the person who initially kind of invented them as backstory for a jump point. You know, they were originally just a riff on Larry Niven's general product hulls, when there were like 4 or 5 different sizes of those in his known space world. He was like, oh, we should do that too. So I figured, we'd have like 5 different bulk containers. I think it was A through, it was 4 originally. It was A through D. It's in the MISC article in Jump Point. And then we pitched that to the community. You guys voted for it, and then you came in and made it cool.
Well, it was a group of us anyway when we were all talking about how can we actually set up like an interesting design for a ship that can actually haul cargo in more zero-G oriented environments, right? We came up with actually, and you were even in on that meeting too, when we actually came up with this interesting concept. It's kind of been around with other sci-fi shows to begin with, but is like more the kind of external cargo placement of these things. And of course, like that has its own inherent side effects of like exposing your cargo so that it could be shot, but if you're in safe UE space or you have like a lot of people that are escorting your particular craft, then you shouldn't have a worry about it. So,
I hear about that worry all the time, and I figure you're not a very good pirate if you're trying to gun down the cargo.
Exactly. But that's I guess the benefit and the drawback of the Hull series is with each one of them having all of its cargo on the exterior, that means that you can actually have tremendously more cargo than a lot of the other ships. And I see that as like a lot of people have the growing concerns that we have maybe the wrong metrics. And I would have to say for some of them we did, because of the fact that we had the measurements of some of the ships were actually originally weighted for what we called freight units at the time, which was actually in terms of the XYZ dimension, which was 0.25 by 0.25 by 0.25, which actually equated out to, I think it was 1.1. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but that was, 0 point whatever. So those were actually in a very, very small cubic dimension for each one of the particular interior nodes that we're actually developing. And you can see it on actually the Grabby Hands demo that Calyx did, which actually has all of these internal item placement nodes. You can actually think of it very similar to like a lot of other similar game titles that just have a 2D grid that are just cells of like different things that are being placed. Ours is actually going in 3D, right? So each one of those particular node bases are 0.25 meters. So then that way you can put like a gun or a cup or whatever, or even like Mr. Lamp inside of your cargo box, and then he fills his particular dimension inside of that particular crate. Now, for a lot of the ships, 0.25 kind of doesn't make a lot of sense because they're anywhere between, 10 meters to 20 meters to 100 meters in terms of their length or width or height for their particular depth. So to make it easier on us, like we were just measuring out a lot of them with the simple primitives of like the box dimensions of just in 1 meter grids. But also for our metrics for what we wanted to have cover height is 1.25. So you can see with a lot of different numbers bouncing back and forth that sometimes it gets lost in translation when we're actually trying to give it all to either like Turbulent or to community or internal between all our design departments, and even with animation, all the numbers might get lost. So we're trying to rectify that right now by actually specifically measuring the internal game dimensions of these things, right? So as long as it's physically accurate, we'll give you guys the actual dimensions that you'll need. And the thing that we want to hit most of all is making sure that we have the Hull series as capable as like the Freelancer Max or the Banu Merchantman or even the Caterpillar, right? So every one of those ships has their own kind of equivalent, but of course with the ones that are not the Hull series, those are all encased on the internals of it, right? Except for maybe the Starfarer.
Yep.
But
We can't
with
talk
that,
about the Starfarer yet.
but with those, we wanted to make sure that the hulls were comparable, and then the Hull E being Gargantua, being able to hull the most amount of cargo that you can possibly actually move on with. So, like, sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent there, but you know,
No, I think that's the sort of thing people find interesting.
as you can tell, I wanted to get that off my chest because I've been seeing that from multiple different angles. So.
It's all his fault. By the time you folks see this, the corrected Dan here has actually gone through and measured pretty much every ship that we actually have in the game and made some estimates for ones like the Merchantmen that are not in the game yet. So we'll have corrected numbers on the website. We're going to show you both the numbers in terms of meters and the numbers in terms of SCU. So you will have all the data.
Cool.
Very cool. Well, thank you very much for coming on and talking hulls.
Thanks very much, Ben.
We will see you the next time we release an incredibly complicated design.
Ciao.
The Hull series, as a whole, is a really interesting challenge. We decided to start with the Hull C because it's the middle ground in the whole fleet.
So the LC is a cargo ship that we sold a long time ago. This is a ship that looks relatively simple from the exterior, but that is a ship that is collapsing on itself and can deploy as well, that is supposed to land and support a lot of cargo.
When it's in its cargo mode, it basically has long struts that can fold out, and the ship basically doubles in size.
So these basically fold out like a fan, and you can fit a ton of cargo on there as you're flying along. The only downside to that is the fact you can't land when the struts are out, obviously, because there's 4 of them, and you'd need like ridiculously long landing gear otherwise.
If you have some cargo and want to connect to a station, at some point it will be possible to connect with a docking collar. You can take containers from a station, from planets as well, obviously, and then you can go to different parts of the galaxy or of the solar system to sell your stuff. The issue with this ship is that at first, when we sold it, we've shown some animation of it collapsing on itself. This is one of the most complex parts of any ship in the game right now. The cargo spindle in the middle, this is supposed to deploy in a specific way.
It presented its subset of challenges of really we've got this moving ship that can kind of move on itself, right? So we've never done that before, so that's kind of kicked off a whole sprint to obviously kind of make that possible. You have to move viziers, you have to move lighting, you have to move collision dynamically in the ship. So that's incredibly challenging to do, but it's going to serve its purpose because then that's enabled us to do stuff on the Pioneer, which we wanted to do, right? So we're always thinking about this stuff as we're doing it. We're not doing it just for one ship. Does that make sense?
We have what we call physics read. Until now, we never had interior physics reads that were moving into each other. With this animation, it meant that everything was going inside and there was only the room for 2 people at the front of the ship and nothing else at all. So we had some room at least to have like some beds and some place to live, some place to go outside, but also some place to put the components. Like if you have some mechanical issue in space, you can still work on the engine, work on the gravity generator and other parts like this. Once this was done, obviously the ship got bigger, and once the ship got bigger, we had to ask ourselves some questions like, do we put some stairs like we planned at the start? Do we put a lift? Do we put different parts? And so we tried different layout. Most importantly, we had to make a layout that will work for other ships in the series. On top of that, this is a cargo ship. This is a space truck, basically. It's not a ship that you can really defend yourself with. You have some remote turrets, you have some guns at the front, but you need to plan an escort to go through the universe without any issues.
When you look at it, it looks like a MISC ship. Like, you know, that's kind of, you know, the sort of primary goal of the ship guys, to make sure it sort of gels with the other ships in that manufacturer. So, you know, when you see it flying along, you know it's a MISC ship, and, you know, it's got this kind of stuff inside it, and, you know, you sort of know how to use it, kind of thing. Graham's done a really nice job on the exterior as well. Like the struts on the arms are crazy complicated to do. Like the mechanism for that is really insane. So yeah, in the interior for the Hull C, like I quite like the sort of engine room at the back, just because it sort of gave me the rear portion of the ship doesn't have it didn't have any concepts or anything. So I basically took the shape that Graham had sort of carved out from the exterior, and it put some like crazy 3-tier engine bay in it, which you know, it looks quite interesting. The bottom area is just sort of arc gubbins, effectively. So you've got these large kind of pulses that go to the engines, and then you've got a sort of lift that takes you to a component floor with, you know, power, shields, gravity generator, and all that sort of stuff. And then the top floor is just like an external sort of airlock out to the back of the ship, with a little sort of like viewing area that you can stand on if you need to check the engines and stuff. But yeah, that was it got considerably larger than the designer's block out was like a tiny little box for the back of the ship, and I managed to wrangle some, you know, massive 3-tier sort of area. So yeah, push it as far as you can. But luckily I had sort of Nate's art direction to sort of pull me back a bit, because I quite like colour, so I was sort of throwing in a lot of very heavy colours, and he was just like, you know, calm it down, which was quite nice.
It's got a lot of cool things about it. I my personal favourite thing about the whole ship is there's the habitational area on the top of the front of the ship, and the guys have put in this wicked little kind of slat window that outlooks into the folding arms section, so you can kind of sit there, and when the ship deploys, you can just appreciate this beautiful kind of unfolding, slow, deliberate kind of movement to it, almost kind of like 2001 rotation. Does that make sense? That is incredibly cool to look at, and I think it's going to be very cool to see people kind of latching on cargo and stuff onto those arms from that window in specific.
You can feel a lot of MISC intentions in the ship. This is older, but this is still a MISC ship.
The MISC style itself is very kind of clean and clinical in that respect. Like the walls don't have any of the, you know, the fluffy pads or pillows and stuff that the like Retaliator and stuff has.
We already had a very established kind of style between the Freelancer and the Starfarer, so it's really kind of taking that should we say that foundation from those ships and really kind of building upon it. So the development cycle is fairly kind of painless now with MISC ships. It's we can kind of, you know, they come in, and we're pretty efficient on the production side of actually developing them.
When I'm making a ship, I just try and look at all the other ships in the range, and then just try and take design cues from each of them and fit it together so that they all look like they've all come from the same factory, basically, or they at least had the same designers on them.
The Hull C has completed the final modeling and surfacing stage of final art, and is now being tended to by multiple teams working on animations, UI, audio, and tech art. Once work on the ship is complete, the resources and practices learned here will be applied to the other 4 variants of the Hull lineup. Just thinking about it brings a smile to my face. Trust me, it's there, under all this hair. Let's see if we can get an update on a ship that's finally making its long-awaited debut in the upcoming Alpha 320, the Hull C from Musashi Industrial. Hey, John Crew, are you there?
Hello.
How you doing, man?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good. The Hull C.
Yep.
This thing's been in development for a while. What's been going on, man?
Well, how long have you got?
Try to keep it under 2 minutes.
Okay. Hull C, for those that don't know, is like the big 18-wheeler of the Star Citizen universe, designed for transporting bulk cargo around the stations and between solar systems. We started it, I want to say 5+ years ago. We got so far on the art and design side, probably early grey box. And then the sheer amount of technical challenges with this ship became apparent. We put a pause to it. I thought, We'll come back. The teams that need to help us have more important things to do at that point in time. There was object container streaming going on, so we're like, that's more important. We'll sort that out. We'll come back to it. And the last year or so, we've come back to it and had to deal with all those big technical challenges for the ship.
And how's it doing today? What can folks expect?
You can expect the ship working as we intended it to be when it was concepted. So it's quite a unique ship in the game. There's a lot of moving parts literally on it and some tech in there that you've never seen before in any ships. So primarily the hurdles revolved around that central spindle section that you can walk through whilst it's doing those animated states. We've essentially got two parts of the ship that move independent, or they're animated together, but they're independent parts of the ship, and a new way of loading cargo onto the ship.
I want to talk to you about that. So one of the big questions since this thing was first introduced is how the cargo loading and unloading is going to work in Alpha 320. Who can tell us about that?
I think we can probably get Chris Tanks on the line.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry, Jared. Excuse me. Hi.
Hi, Chris Tanks.
Hi, Jared.
So how does cargo work for the Hull C in Alpha 320?
So in Alpha 320, the Hull C behaves as we expect it to. When it's extended, when its cargo arms are out, it can't land. So it can't take cargo in the normal sense that any other ship that takes cargo does while it's landed. So you go to your cargo terminal, you buy as much cargo as you want, you set it to the Hull C, but the system recognizes that it can't spawn the cargo while the ship is landed. So you get in your ship, you fly it out of the hangar, and then contact ATC again. That is when the ship realizes, oh, I'm out of the landing zone now, I'm ready to take some cargo. So you extend it, contact the ATC, and the cargo will spawn on your ship then.
Does this thing fit in any hangars?
While it's collapsed, it'll fit in the large spec hangars. When it's extended, it doesn't fit in any hangar we have at the moment.
You can dock it though.
It can be docked at any station.
Has anybody tried to dock it when it's fully extended?
Oh, I mean, you would hit the extent of the cargo long before your landing gear touched the ground. It would not be pretty. Well, I mean, somebody will have done it, and it will have been a magnificent explosion, but I wouldn't recommend it.
All right, so we've been looking at images of the new Hull C. It looks fantastic. Which one of you is going to talk about how it looks?
Probably Ben.
You don't have Ben back here, do you?
Hello.
Take a seat, Ben.
Hello, Jared. How are you?
There's no way they're letting me do this with the episode ever again. Ben, talk us through it. The Hull C looks great. It's been a while getting there.
Yep.
Tell us about it.
So as John mentioned, it's been in development for a while. We kind of stepped on it and stepped off it, depending on what tech we needed. I think, in our game we talk a lot about kind of gold standard, but really with the Hull C, it's kind of like current standard. So what we want to do is make sure that when we release the ship visually, it ticked all of our kind of current processes, and it kind of really it was on par with everything else that we put out now compared to where it was kind of back in the day. I think some of the other kind of updates we've had to do to kind of maintain it over the years is just the kind of like the simple things like we now have a lot more interaction in the ships, which we never had back when it was first started. So making sure all the panels are accessible and open and close and animate, making sure the dashboard's all interactive and all those fun things that everyone's used to now.
What are some of your favorite parts? What are things that people should look out for visually?
I think, to be honest, the ship is a very industrial ship, and it really kind of feels that way. There's some like little things that I just love, like the main kind of airlock entrance into the ship feels really big and chunky and strong, which I think is needed on something so industrial. And that kind of industrial language kind of flows throughout the ship. I think my kind of main favourite place is engineering in the rear. The whole rear of the ship is kind of dedicated to really encompassing that idea that you are on a big workhorse. There's big engines, there's massive pipes. It feels really kind of like nice and moody and a little bit dangerous. And I think that's kind of really helps sell what's going on the outside of the ship, but inside.
Well, that all sounds great. So, what did we learn this week?
The SEU value introduced earlier defines the exterior dimensions of containers, which is important to note because it allows the number of SEU a ship is rated for to actually correlate with the SEU value of all containers which can be placed inside that particular cargo bay. Containers are placed in a locking grid of sorts, which marks out, floor to ceiling, where cargo can be stored on board a ship. The technology that drives these locking plates only require power to change state, and will secure even unboxed cargo as long as it is fully within the locking area. This means that only cargo containers can stack while disallowing infinite bridges, and that turning off the power plant won't shred the ship with instant cargo shrapnel. Active locking plates are lit gold, although the light will change to red if there is something wrong, the cargo bay is too damaged to maintain lock, any of the items atop the plate cannot be secured and so on. Ship cargo interaction. Finally, as included in the final use case, players must be able to interact with their cargo from the ship's onboard manifest. Using the manifest, you can activate and deactivate locking plates, to jettison cargo, set orders for arranging cargo and see the effect that all of your items are having on your center of mass. Unlike previous games, your ship's performance will be tied to the mass and volume of what you decide to load aboard her. We are in the process of developing the UI for this system today, and are proud to present a mock-up of the current version.